Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Wrestling Mat. Finishing up week number 4 here on the Wrestling Mat. Thank you all for being with me, and make sure, if you haven't done so yet, you know the deal. It's right under Todd. There's Todd. Hey, Todd, how you doing? Subscribe at thewrestlingmatshow.com. We want to thank everybody for continuing to subscribe, to share. Make sure you turn those notifications on because you don't know what's coming. I will give you a little hint of what's coming. That episode, that first bonus episode we said we would get to with myself and Chef Reactions, it's ready to go. It is dropping at some point next week, reacting to the first Nitro, which, by the way, if you want to prepare for a little bit, Season 1, Episode 1 on Peacock of Nitro. You'll be able to watch along that with us as we react to that episode. It's about 50-ish minutes long. It is quite a show from the Mall of America. If you don't know about it, from back in 1995, the first ever episode. There's a lot in that show. There's a Ric Flair Sting match in that show. That is the second match on the show. So it's all there. I will give you a hint. There will be Pastamania talk. And you will get more than you ever expected about just how to handle a Pastamania franchise. And if that's not a tease for you to get ready for that show to drop, for you to subscribe to the WrestlingMatchShow.com, to turn those notifications on so you don't miss a thing, I don't know what is. Coming soon to the Wrestling Mat, I said we'd have some other content, some things I've been talking about. Here's a few topics and show ideas that will be coming your way. But make sure you have those notifications on, and you might even have some extra access to those notifications and to these shows. But stay tuned for that in the future. So what do we have coming up here in the coming weeks and months here at the Wrestling Mat? The most influential matches of the modern era. I have quite the list, spanning multiple companies over multiple decades. I'll break that list down for you, coming from me in the coming weeks here at the Wrestling Mat. The top 5 biggest talent blunders in WWE. I'm talking about talent that should have been bigger, that should have been main eventers, that should have been champions, that saw their talent get mishandled, misbooked by WWE. We have an episode of that coming to the Wrestling Mat. We have something called If I Had the Book. And that will focus on Big E. What could that be? Yeah, that episode will be coming soon to the Wrestling Mat. All bonus content for you. The current day draft, something I've talked about a lot. I'll be doing a draft with someone you may have seen here before. I'm not exactly sure who it's going to be with yet. We're going to draft 2 rosters of current day professional wrestling. So we have access to everyone. Budgets don't matter. And we're going to put together a roster, 2 rosters of current day wrestlers. And finally, at least for now, something I'm calling the Wrestle Draft. We've hinted about it before. In concept at WWE, it was called the War Room. The Wrestle Draft will be us taking a topic, myself and probably 3 other participants, and drafting the best roster, squad of that topic. Could be 4 or 5 rounds of European champions, Intercontinental champions, WrestleMania main events, wrestling venues. What topic could we cover in the Wrestle Draft? All of that is coming your way, but you got to make sure that you subscribe at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Turn those notifications on. Make sure you are commenting. And if, you're watching with us here today, as we are with you, Monday through Friday, if you have missed anything this week, all the past episodes, full episodes, are currently up at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Make sure you subscribe. Check those all out on YouTube, as well as our shorts, which are getting a little bit more attention. A great one with Trick Williams and Cody Rhodes went up. Also had something about Ricochet and Braun Breaker, and plenty more of that coming up in our short section, which is always updated right here at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Now, I will tell you, I am going on vacation next week, but there will be no missed shows. That's right. I am going to be working for you guys, putting out the best stuff on vacation. On Monday, at 5 p.m. Eastern, our normal time slot, we will have a full weekend review, obviously talking about Clash of the Castle, which we're going to be previewing a little bit later on here today. Now, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, I'm going to be doing special live episodes at 10 a.m. Eastern. Yes, earlier in the day. I like to still enjoy my vacation. I believe my fiance would like to still enjoy her vacation. So I'll be doing 3 live episodes, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Next week, a special start time at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then Friday, well, you'll have to wait and see what is going to come from that one. I'll be in Montreal next week. It'll be the Montreal Good Job. That's what I'm going to call it. Now, before we get into Clash of the Castle, we have spoken a lot. It's been a hot topic about the relationship between TNA and WWE, obviously TNA with NXT. Now, next week, there is a 25-man battle royal to determine the next number one contender for Trick Williams' NXT Championship, as Cody Rhodes announced on NXT this week. That battle royal will include people from other locker rooms. And it's easy to go look ahead and go, okay, here's another extension of the TNA WWE partnership. I think right there, once again, I continue to say that when it comes to the partnership and it comes to the idea of it, I think it excites people. Who would be your top 5 people from the TNA men's locker room to be in that match? I'm just throwing that out there. Who really excites you to see in that match? Would you like to see that battle royal, as I commented on a couple of days ago, set up other matches between the two companies? There is intrigue. Let's see how it's executed. Now, a lot of press going on this week for WWE, as everybody who's going to be part of Clash of the Castle or SmackDown tonight. And by the way, I would like to say this right now. I realize SmackDown's taping early. No spoilers. In the comments, let's not do that. I don't think it'll be a major show at SmackDown tonight. Just getting everybody to Saturday, getting everybody to Clash of the Castle. Let's not spoil the show in the comments. That's all I ask. You can go find those spoilers elsewhere, and I understand that. So, there's a lot of media happening. AJ Styles did an interview with Cultaholic and was asked about a TNA crossover and what that would look like and how much more could be done. And he said, well, I would say that hopefully something like that happens. It's good for not only for talent in WWE to go to TNA and TNA to go to WWE, but it's better for the younger talent to get into the ring with some people who have different styles. It's very important that we are well-rounded. And you can't do all that in NXT. So the fact that we're going to be able to do that somewhere else is great. You can read between the lines of that. Specifically the line, it's very important that we are well-rounded, and you can't do all that in NXT. This is something I have spoken about before the TNA WWE relationship, and obviously a lot this week. When you are recruited by WWE, especially those athletes who never stepped foot in a ring before, some of these tryouts that happen around the big PLEs like SummerSlam and WrestleMania, you're getting day one training from WWE. Now, they didn't really have that for a very long time. The PC's 10 plus years old now, as we know. And things have changed a lot. There have been talent that have been brought up through the WWE system that have done well. Alexa Bliss, Braun Strowman, Bianca Belair, just to name a few. There have been talent that are pre-NXT, that were FCW people, like Roman Reigns, like Baron Corbin, like the late Bray Wyatt, like Bo Dallas. There's obviously different levels to go to and where they came from. Dean Ambrose was on the indies. Seth Rollins was on the indies. And there's plenty more that came through the indies first, ended up in FCW and got called up. Kofi Kingston's in that conversation as well. Or moved on to the PC and did even more things before coming up. So there's different levels of how much WWE has had their fingerprints on the talent that has risen to various lengths, various levels. I think there's some kind of middle ground when you think about the indie wrestlers that have had success in WWE. You could say, well, they had training already. They got their bump card filled on the indies. they learned a lot there. And that is true. And that gives them a big, to me, advantage over people who are day one WWE trainees. It also helps, might I add, to be a fan. Now, not everybody is a fan. Not everybody enjoyed wrestling or watched wrestling growing up. And some people have done that and have had success. Chris Statlander was not and I'm just using a general example, Chris Statlander was not a wrestling fan growing up. She kind of fell into it, realized she was good at it, and we see where she is today. I think she's more of the anomaly than the norm. I think the majority of wrestlers, especially these days, were fans. And I think having a passion for the business always comes through on camera. Now, there are some of these NXT talent that we're starting to see on TV that never watched it or only watched it briefly. I think they've been sold, hey, come work for WWE. You're a hell of an athlete. Let's turn you into a sports entertainer. There's a sales pitch there. There's a sales pitch that they can give when they're trying to recruit these people, whether it be through NIL or these tryouts at the weekend of big shows. The recruitment process is flipping on Mania this year and seeing what that looked like, that spectacle. Dangle that carrot in front of them. Unless you're going to the pros in a sport that you played in college, your athletic career might be over. And unless you're going to the pros in a major sport where you're going to get paid, what are those other sports going to end up paying you? What's that going to be as a job? Is it a job? Is it a real profession? Or do those sports become more of a hobby and you got to find another gig? Whereas in WWE, they dangle that carrot of a unbelievable level of notoriety, working for the biggest wrestling company in the world, now owned by Endeavor, who's also working with TKO. I'm sure some people were excited to step into the UFC Apex a couple of weekends ago. Last weekend, I should say. That were NXT talent. Because there is some excitement about those that know what UFC is. So there is that carrot to dangle. There is that excitement that they can show off to the talent that may not know a lot about wrestling or may not know about wrestling at all, but knows that they can be presented with their hard work that they have done going back to their athletic days of organized sports. Hey, you just keep doing that and you follow our lead. Maybe you could be in the ring with Cody Rhodes. Those are the carrots they're going to dangle. Maybe you could be in the ring with the man, Becky Lynch. Look what she's doing now. Cody Rhodes is all over the place. One day you could get there. That's the story that they're going to, that's the sales pitch. And I get that. And some people are thinking that way. Some of them have no idea whatsoever. But it's a recruitment process. Now, those that came through the indies, that got training elsewhere, that have already worked matches, I think you see that on your televisions in NXT. You could see who's had some work under their belt, that has a built-up resume. But there is polish that is put on performers. There's no doubt about that. Shinsuke Nakamura didn't need to figure out where the hard cam was when he went to NXT. However, they certainly upped his persona with the WWE production. Think of the music. Think of the live performances that have been connected to Shinsuke Nakamura. Think even this past year of how he was presented against Cody Rhodes with those awesome animations and cartoons. WWE can make people bigger. I think Ricochet, while still in the news, is also a good example of that. Could do everything in the ring, but adding a little bit to his aura. Finn Balor didn't need a lot of work, but look how much bigger they can present him with the demon and everything that goes into that. Kevin Owens did that. Sami Zayn was not Sami Zayn. Well, we never knew who Sami Zayn was, I guess, to be fair to say. But think of Sami Zayn. Think of what he looks like in WWE. And I'm not saying they needed the WWE to make them that much better, but there is a presentation, there is a polish that, if done correctly, can make people who came from the indies or another company even better. So I say all that to say AJ Styles bringing that up, saying it's very important that we are well-rounded, and you can't do all that in NXT. They can do so much in NXT. They can train you with the basics. You can maybe learn how to cut a promo. But you're doing so in a place that feels safe. Whether you're getting tough love coaching or soft coaching or whatever it may be, it's always happening with the same people. You're wrestling the same people. You're talking to the same people. You're getting coached by the same people. You report to work every day. And there's television on Tuesdays, and they go on the road once in a while for house shows. They go do Las Vegas like they did last weekend. But it's the same cycle of things all the time. Getting out of your comfort zone is important. It's going to make you better. The Street Profits seem to hit I guess you would call it a ceiling of sorts in NXT. So go to Evolve. Go work Eddie Kingston. That happened. I forgot who Eddie teamed with. I don't know. I don't remember who he teamed with, but the Street Profits worked Eddie Kingston. The Street Profits became Evolve Tag Team Champions. They weren't running all these great buildings. They weren't a major draw or anything like that. Now, Gabe and Evolve could say, hey, we're going to have this person there to wrestle you may know from NXT or WWE, or they're going to do a meet and greet. And yeah, sure, that's going to help Evolve. But that was about getting talent reps in different places, having them step out of their comfort zone. I've talked to the Profits about that. They did feel like it helped them. So to AJ's point, it's getting people in NXT out of Orlando, out of the Performance Center, out of that general region. Go work somewhere different where you're not comfortable. Go work against people you don't know. Go learn a different way to put a match together. Go talk to different creative people. Maybe they pick up on something. Maybe it's a fresh pair of eyes or sets of eyes in front of a different crowd, in front of a different audience, in a different ring, on a different stage. That's how you get better. You go out there and you do different things with different people. You fail. Maybe you aren't practicing the match that you're going to do for TV. That used to be a thing at the Performance Center. There was a time, and I don't think they do this as much as anymore. They would literally go through what TV matches were going to be before they did them. Now, I know some people will say, well, hey, they do that on house shows sometimes. Yes, they do. Many stories from other people doing shows in this realm that would tell you how much house shows helped them and that they could start to put together things that they know were working or didn't work or go try them out. And they would take them to their pay-per-view matches. And that's a good thing. Believe me, that's a good thing. And that's why I think that some of the talent in NXT that aren't getting enough reps outside of that area should be on more house show loops and live event loops. That's a very important thing for development. So AJ's saying that, talking about being well-rounded, it's saying there's other things to learn outside of WWE. And maybe this partnership can make that happen. Now, during the press event that happened earlier today, AJ, who I have said is super over in Europe, and a big part of that was cultivated from his time when TNA would go over there. TNA was huge in the UK especially. And you could see that crowd, how much they were into AJ, who is obviously a heel right now. But Michael Cole straight up just asked him about TNA and what's going on there. And then TNA chants erupted. He said, what a great time to be a wrestling fan. And he said, if I were running the show, that's exactly what I'd do. And he's referencing the fact that there is crossover there. Now, it is easy for AJ to say that as someone who wouldn't have to deal with the politics and the business end of that, but I see what he's saying, and I don't think you do it all the time, but it is old school wrestling. Territories sharing wrestlers. The traveling world champion allowed for different matchups and for different audiences to see different wrestlers they weren't used to seeing. And that's a good thing. Also, interesting that Michael Cole asked that question. Because I've seen the rumors, like all of you guys have, I think, that WWE may change how they handle the post-show press conferences. Wonder why. Are they going to quiet certain people? Are they going to take what they want from those press conferences and now make it their own? I don't know. And I don't know if Glasgow's the place to do that. We'll see. Glasgow, excuse me. I want to say it correctly. But we'll see if they change things up. We'll see if Triple H is put in front of the typical press audience that he has been subjected to. We'll see how they handle that. Now, before we get to the Clash of the Castle preview, an article was posted by ESPN today. And it's titled, make sure I get this correct as I look off here, How The Rock Orchestrated a WrestleMania Comeback for the Ages. This is by Mike Coppinger. He is the ESPN boxing insider. And it is a glowing puff piece about The Rock and the final boss, and how his confidence may not have been there. There's a line here. Deep down, The Rock was a bit unsure of himself. Johnson was nervous on the inside, but the sunglasses that concealed his eyes from the millions watching worldwide. Weeks shy, I'm going to keep reading here for a second. Weeks shy of his 52nd birthday, he finally made his way down the ramp for his first wrestling match in 11 years. WWE may be scripted, but that doesn't alter how challenging the task. A 45-minute match, in parentheses, second longest in WrestleMania history, that requires precise timing, elite skills, and an uncanny feel for the others inside the ropes. Okay. It was a tag match with Roman Reigns and Cody and Seth. You remember all those spots Rock did in that match? Remember him yelling at the ref? I mean, I don't know. Saying this dude was shook and painting him in this way seems a bit much. As it's a puff piece, okay? And if that name, Mike Coppinger, sounds familiar, let me read this tweet from May 2nd, 2023. Just a few months before All Elite Wrestling made their debut at Wembley. He was replying to a tweet from Meltzer. Hearing Wembley is scaled for only $40K for AEW. Far cry from last April when I was ringside for Tyson Fury versus Dylan White, and it was packed to the brim with 94,000. Nothing beats big fight feel at Wembley. That was replied to. This might sound familiar now. Replied to by one Tony Khan. In capital letters, lies. What a load of crap. Tell your agent, Nick Khan, to shove it up his ass. Tony would then go on to reply, since you carry the credentials of a credible reporter and represent the worldwide leader, I'm just curious. Who is your source for this? And how can a reporter representing ESPN tweet something about a legit news story that's so blatantly false, wrong, and easily verified as falsehood? As we know, a few months after that, AEW would put nearly double the 40K. And it's whatever number it is, 81, 78. It wasn't 40. The same person who put that tweet out, which was dead wrong, wrote this article about The Rock. All I'm saying is, and I'm not one of those that is like, well, the media is wrong and blah, blah, blah. This was a puff piece about The Rock. Who doesn't need a puff piece? Get well soon, Dwayne. Sorry about your elbow. Same guy wrote that article who put those completely false tweets out there. And he was represented by the agency that Nick Khan used to be a part of. Nick Khan would leave that, and obviously he's in his role with WWE. The PR machine knows what they're doing. Think about that when these articles come out and the positive reports come out, or those fast nationals come out. Think of why someone would want to put those fast nationals out, those ratings numbers. Because they don't want the other company to be able to gain any ground. And I know people will say, well, yeah, they didn't. Look what they did this week. They lost to NXT. They did. They put on a pretty damn good show, AEW, this week. But they lost. I hope they don't get discouraged by that because I think the show was well done. They were also number 2 on cable for the night. And I guarantee you that Warner is happy with that. Ratings as a whole are doing this. Obviously, the WNBA has had an uptick because of Caitlin Clark, and things like that are good. Raw ain't looking that great lately. That Raw number was not pretty. AEW being number 2 on cable this week, Warner Brothers will be happy with. Warner Media, whatever the hell they're called. They're going to be happy with that number. They are aware that AEW was on at the same time as Game 3 of the NBA Finals. 2 is not a bad thing. A wrestling company that's 5 years old, consistently being in the top 5, top 3, has topped Wednesday night in ratings. It's a major positive. And I said it reviewing Dynamite yesterday. The fact that they are going MJF Roosh with no commercials to open the show next week is something that is a major positive in the relationship between Warner and AEW. And there's no other way to analyze that. There is not a single negative. There's not even a single neutral comment about that. That is 100% a positive thing. Hey, you're going to open the show and we're not going to put commercials in there. Go for it. That's a good thing. And if you're a wrestling fan, AJ Styles saying it, what a great time to be a wrestling fan. And I know he was saying that not just based on the fact that WWE is working with TNA, but that there's wrestling everywhere and there's places to go and things to watch. Without AEW, people aren't making the money that they're making. Anywhere. It's competition. It was always financial competition for WWE. Without AEW, I don't think WWE is working with TNA. They know that TNA is not competition for them. Not any kind of real threat of competition, so work with them. What can we get out of this deal? I'll continue to go back to the idea that there should hopefully be some sharing of library. I think that would be part of it. But it is a good time to be a wrestling fan. And there seems to be wrestling on all the time. But the machine in WWE knows that they want to control as much as they can control. So you'll see puff pieces like that about The Rock, a TKO board member. You'll see numbers get leaked, things like that, to make AEW look bad. They'll pump up TNA because it benefits them. It's just part of it. It shouldn't affect us as wrestling fans, though. You don't have to stick up for AEW. You don't have to stick up for WWE. I don't get that. My DMs and texts are filled with people from both companies who I like. Some of which I've been critical of on this very show. They get it. There's somebody working this weekend who I talked to who was watching this show, who told me, I'm happy to see you unfiltered. There are people from AEW who have reached out to me, and I've been critical of them. Complimentary of what I'm doing, saying that it's fair, but also getting that we're all just pointing everybody back towards wrestling. If we're doing this job, whether it be me or anybody else that's talking about wrestling for a living, why would we want less? I love the idea that I'm even talking about TNA and WWE having a partnership. That's a fantastic thing. I'm going to be critical. I'm going to be fair in my criticism. I'm not just going to throw it out there of everybody. And I'm also going to praise when it's good. But if you're just strictly a fan, you got 3 hours on Monday. You got 2 hours on Tuesday. You got 2 hours on Wednesday. You got 2 hours on Thursday. You got 3 hours on Friday between SmackDown and Rampage. And you got 2 hours on Saturday. 6 days a week, there are multiple hours of wrestling. And I'm not saying you have to watch it all. I'm just saying look how much is available. And that's not including what New Japan is doing, both in Japan and in America. What the indies are doing. Years ago, right before AJ Styles debuted in WWE, I interviewed him, the Bucks, Frankie Kazarian, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Moose, Christopher Daniels, about, and this was at a Ring of Honor show, his final battle in Philadelphia at the ECW Arena. The article's out there. We'll post it somewhere on our socials. And the article was about how WWE didn't have to be the end-all, be-all anymore. This is pre-AEW, obviously. This is 3-ish years before AEW. And basically, it was just a conversation of, yeah, there's other things you can do. And, the Bucks had been able to make money via their T-shirts and their social media and go to New Japan and kind of change the game there and Bullet Club and all those things. And guys were leaving TNA to go to Ring of Honor or Japan or vice versa. Think about what AJ Styles did leaving TNA, being really the guy in TNA in terms of a homegrown star and going to New Japan. And he's even talked about recently what that has or did for his career. And look where he's at now in WWE. If AJ Styles doesn't leave TNA when he did and get the push that he did in New Japan, he ain't wrestling Cody at this stage of his career for the WWE Championship for the second time in a couple of months. Having the other places to go to has been great for wrestling, has made WWE better. Everybody knows that WWE took a dive when WCW was done. They didn't have the competition. They were kind of just doing their own thing because they weren't worried about anybody else. TNA wasn't close. But in that interview, one of the things I asked Christopher Daniels was about how it is for wrestling fans right now. And he basically said, and other people have said this, you can find the flavor of ice cream that you want. They're all out there now. in a variety of ways to watch. If you want to catch up on 3 hours of Raw on YouTube, here's 18 minutes of that. 20 minutes of that. If you want to watch an indie show, we've talked to Joey Janelle, we talked to Matt Cardona. Look what they've done on the indies. Post working for major companies. The buzz they're creating. More than just in the ring. Using social media. That's out there for everybody. And think of the names I just talked about. Christopher Daniels in AEW. Frank Kazarian was in AEW, back to TNA. Bucks obviously starting up AEW. Kyle O'Reilly, after that conversation, went from WWE. Now he's in AEW. Adam Cole from WWE to AEW. It was an interesting locker room to see where they went after that. Many different places. AJ Styles worked Shinsuke at Wrestle Kingdom a couple weeks after that and then was in the Rumble. And AJ's working Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. Think of that comment 5 years ago. Yeah, it's going to be AJ and Cody for the WWE Championship in Glasgow in an I Quit match. But Drew McIntyre is going to be the main event of that show. Think of that comment 5 years ago. I guess it wouldn't have. No, 5 years ago wouldn't have made sense. June 2019, Drew McIntyre main eventing a show that also has Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles on it. And that's why AJ making that comment on that presser, what a great time to be a wrestling fan, coming from him should say a lot. Let's get into Clash of the Castle. Let's talk about Drew and Priest. Drew beats Finn on Raw. No Judgment Day. World title on the line. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I'll talk about it more. Drew McIntyre getting to, obviously, main event this show. After the first Clash of the Castle didn't go his way. In a different place. Now he's home. Clash of the Castle a couple of years ago happened because of Drew. Clash of the Castle this weekend is happening because of Drew. And I loved, if you haven't seen it, because Drew's done all kind of media. He did local media. He sat in the ring at ICW and talked about being there this week. But there was a clip of him and Piper. And Piper told a little story and basically said a little anecdote. And basically said that Drew was the one who made it a reality for Scottish wrestlers to be able to make it. He set the example. I thought that was really nice. And you could see Drew, it got to him. But he did. And others did that. So Drew is getting the praise he deserves. He's getting treated like the hometown conquering hero. But we're going to get that match in the ring on Saturday afternoon. In what will be a crowd that I have to say, and it's so interesting that this is the comparison. The crowd tomorrow afternoon to a person will be rooting for Drew McIntyre to walk out as world champion. Damian Priest, at least when the match starts, will be the most hated person when that bell rings from the moment his entrance happens. Alone, because no Judgment Day. And the easiest and most obvious and correct comparison is the night I was in attendance in Rosemont, in Chicago, if you will, Money in the Bank 2011, when CM Punk had that entire unbelievable arena, as old as it is, all that wood, all that great sounding acoustics. Every single person wanted CM Punk to win, and they all hated John Cena. And they got taken on a roller coaster ride. It's one of the best things I've ever attended of any sport, performance, wrestling show. It's number one. Just because of the atmosphere in that building. Everybody wanting a guy who had been a heel but had been turned babyface over the few weeks, CM Punk, to defeat the face of the company, John Cena, for the WWE Championship. And they threw bells and whistles with Johnny Ace and Vince out there, and Cena, still being a good guy, stopped it. And then he lost. And they tried to cash in, and Punk left. And that was a rabid, intense, excited crowd that got the payoff that they wanted. Does that happen at the end of Clash of the Castle? Does Drew get his moment? A heel outside of the last couple of days and tomorrow. And then take that title back to America, back on Raw on Monday, where he would theoretically still be a heel. Or does CM Punk stop it from happening? What would you do? Because I think it would be the easy answer if the dynamics weren't shifting after this show. If Drew was the babyface and has been the babyface, he'll be a babyface in his home country. Of course he will. But I'm saying, regardless, most of the time, where you are, you're a babyface or you're a heel. And that's where what you are everywhere. If Drew was walking in and has been a babyface for months, coming into his home country against a heel priest, yeah, it would be easy to say Punk could cost him, and Punk's the heel and continues to be the heel. That's the easy answer, and you could easily do that. But based on what WWE has presented, CM Punk is a babyface, and Drew McIntyre is a heel. Drew happened to injure him in the Royal Rumble on his way to becoming a full-fledged heel. That's the story they're going with. It happened in the Rumble. But, there was the beatdown after. But Punk already ruined Drew's moment at WrestleMania. If he does it again, and I know there's been interactions and they've each taken their shots and Drew got after Punk a little bit, but if Punk does it again, on that day, he's obviously a heel because he's doing it in Glasgow. But doesn't he come off a little bit more like a dick if he does it again? What's the reaction going to be to Punk on Monday? Assuming this all happens. Wouldn't Drew have a point? Wouldn't people side with Drew a little bit if Punk did it twice? I still think Drew has goodwill. Yeah, he's taken out Sammy, but think of the last month. He's been battling heels. He's been battling Judgment Day. He's kind of been the pseudo babyface anyway. And he'll clearly be that at Clash of the Castle. I know people don't believe that Punk and Drew need the title. And I understand that. And you know that Gunther, not next month, but in 2 months, has the world title shot because he won King of the Ring. What do they do between now and then? What's Money in the Bank look like? I don't think it's as easy as Punk cost Drew. But don't you want Punk to be the babyface when you come back around? When you come back to America? Now, the other part of this is, and this is up to Punk, this is up to WWE. What if they just ran with that? Punk's a hell of a heel. It doesn't have to be limited to this weekend just because of where they are. What if the dynamics do change? I think it was this day in history. Our friends on this day in WWE history posted the Punk second cash-in on Jeff Hardy. That turned him heel. He didn't apologize for that. He was a babyface at that time. He cashed in Money in the Bank like everybody else does. But it turned him because of who he was going against. Is there a scenario where CM Punk remains a heel and gets booed on Monday if he costs Drew in his home country? Would they lean into that? That's another question. Would WWE go, okay, we know what we've done with Drew for the last 6-7 months, but maybe this dynamic is better with Punk as the heel and Drew as the babyface? That could be in play. I do like that it shouldn't be obvious. And I wonder what those conversations have been like. Is this going to be straight up what the Hart Foundation versus Stone Cold was in 97? In Canada, the Harts are baby faces, and anybody who goes against them are heels. And when they're everywhere else, the dynamics go back to what the norm is. It's not like they're going to go run a bunch of important shows in Scotland or in Europe after this. Yeah, I know they'll be back and do Japan stuff, and they've announced a return, but it's not in the regular tour. They're going to be in America. Does Drew's goodwill, does Drew's run of being a babyface, being the world champ during the pandemic, do people still stick with that if Punk screws him over again? It is something to consider with that match. Cody and AJ Styles, I quit for the WWE Championship, to me is a character-building win for Cody. They'll have another great match. We know AJ's not going to win. AJ wouldn't be, you're not going to build that entire story up for AJ Styles at this point in his career. Not a knock on AJ Styles, just where he slots in WWE. Not the time to do it. They'll have a great match. Now, does it lead to anything else? Money in the Bank is less than a month away. What's Cody's role there? You know, we had talked about, people brought it up in the chat, the idea of Cody maybe selling the AJ beatdown and not appearing at Clash of the Castle and pushing the title match to Money in the Bank. Not the case. They're doing it. This will be the end. Cody's not losing. But what's next? Does he end up in a singles match for the championship at Money in the Bank? Does he just make an appearance? Is he going to do some kind of talk show appearance? That's a possibility. I just think this will be a standalone great match to end the feud. I still have to think that we're getting to Randy by SummerSlam, who, of course, we have not seen since King of the Ring. Bayley and Piper for the women's title. Bayley has talked about this in the media while being over there, I think, earlier today. She knows Piper's in her home country, but also, similar to AJ, Bayley has cultivated quite a fan base in Europe. NXT is a part of that. Will it be everyone fully behind Piper? I think it's more of a question mark. I think she'll have the majority of people behind her. But as I said, it's not like they've heated Piper up ahead of this enough. It's been very much like, oh yeah, Piper, Scotland, let's make that happen. Bayley and Nia feels like it's a lock for SummerSlam. Nia is dealing with Micha now and all that. But what's the crowd going to be like? You know, what does a Bayley win look like? Do you have Chelsea grab some of the heat? You know, there is that. But it feels like a foregone conclusion. Jade and Bianca, Isla Alba, Shayna Zoe for the tag team titles. Once again, feels like it was thrown on there to get some hometown women, home country women on there. And that's fine, but heat them up sooner. Jade and Bianca beating Shayna or Zoe, that's the move. Don't have the home country tandem lose in Scotland. I don't think that's worth it. What is next for Jade and Bianca, though? Who do you get ready for them? Is it about the tag team titles? Is it about more maybe what their singles look like? I have said I think it's a good idea that Jade has, they had the big three with her and Naomi and Bianca. Now it's her and Bianca. I think it's good because Jade needs the reps. Jade's career just basically happened on Rampage. They pushed her, I don't want to say to the moon because they kind of hid her. She just needed more reps. There was some clunkiness in her matches. She has everything else down. There's another person coming to WWE. A lot more shine put on her. Presentation of her. She was always going to end up at WWE. Her and Bianca will main event at WrestleMania. And if it happened next year, I wouldn't be shocked at all. That's going to happen. They're going to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania. As they should. That is a marketing person's dream to have Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill to promote. They're not going to go there yet, at least this year. But is this more about them defending the tag titles and Jade getting more reps? Not all of it being about her. Put her in better spots. Let her learn along the way. Let her learn from people who are more experienced. She had those opportunities in AEW. She'll have more of those opportunities in WWE. You want to make sure she is presented in the best light possible as she continues to develop her game. And there's nothing wrong with her continuing to develop her game. She doesn't have a ton of experience. You want to make sure, and Bianca went through the same thing, and Tiffany's going through that, and others have gone through that. They don't all get it right away. It takes time. Jade just happens to be somebody you can make money off of as she learns and as she gets better. Bianca was an unbelievable Raw athlete coming from CrossFit, basically discovered by Mark Henry, and you could see right away, whether it be in the Mae Young or her in NXT, she was going to be a star. She had to get better. She was brought up to Raw after the PC Mania, and then they kind of shelved her because the belief was, she wasn't ready. So what they do, they did more to get her ready, and they had that great presentation for when she got drafted over to Fox and SmackDown, and off she was and wins the Rumble and beats Sasha at Mania and has never looked back and has only gotten better since then. And now is the veteran of her tag team. And I'm sure has been super helpful to Bianca. To Jade, excuse me. I don't see a ton of direction for the tag team titles, the women's tag team titles in WWE. Whether you believe they're cursed or not, I don't know. But it's not like they have obvious choices. So let's see where things go from here. What would you do with Jade and Bianca? Do they both get Money in the Bank? Probably. I think there's something to that. And maybe that adds another piece to the puzzle, another little footnote in the story. What if they both end up going up the ladder at the same time? And there's just a tease of a face-off. And before anything can happen, a heel knocks them off. And based on that, you'd have a little piece you can go back to. It's just testing the waters. They did it years ago with AJ and Shinsuke. They had them face off. It was like, ooh, what's that? That's a great way to test the waters. What things could be. You have Jade and Bianca go up that ladder at the same time next month. Watch the crowd reaction. Watch them come up when they see that happen. And you don't do anything with it. They don't touch. You keep them away from each other in the match. You have a heel push them off the ladder or break that up, or two heels, but you just give the fans that much. Because everybody knows it's coming at some point in time. Finally, speaking of been giving the fans this much, and then this much, and then this much, that's what we've seen with Alpha Academy and Chad Gable, and Otis potentially turning on Chad. Another IC title match, Sammy and Chad. And by the way, here is a great example of using rematches the right way. Chad's gotten his chances at Sammy, whether it be in singles or triple threats or whatever. They've done Otis and Sammy multiple times. They've done all that. And yet still, because of the story that is going on alongside this IC title feud, it still feels fresh. It still feels good. Chad walking out, I still go back to the idea of Chad walking out of Clash with the IC title because Otis inadvertently helped him to win. Almost another tease of Otis finally snapping on Chad. Saw it a little bit last month. Could happen again. I think Chad's got to be IC champ. I think he will kick everybody to the curb and end up with Ivy and the Creeds. Now, where does Sammy go from there? Maybe somewhere else. Maybe he's in Money in the Bank and he's repositioned towards the world title. But I think Chad as the IC champ is the way to go. And eventually we get to that match with him and Otis. And I think the move, when that match happens, because the turn will happen and Otis will get that big pop, and Maxine and Tozawa will be with him, is Otis gets that chance at Chad in the IC title, and it seems like Otis is going to get his moment, and the Creeds stop it. And Chad has a new group. He's got heaters. He's got people that can protect his title. And while Chad is a great wrestler, he'll be better as a chicken shit heel, and already is, to escape with the IC title. Yeah, he can wrestle great matches, but if you want him to get booed and you want him to be the guy who's probably the most hated in all of wrestling right now, in the best way possible, you don't want him winning clean. You don't want Chad to just be on display as this unbelievable wrestler. Chad Gable, the IC title-obsessed, power-hungry, maniacal piece of trash who treats everybody around him like garbage until he needs them, that's the guy who is doing the best work right now. Not Chad Gable, the wrestler in the ring. And when he cuts that scathing promo that should happen on Maxine and Tozawa and, most importantly, Otis, it says, look what I have now. Look at Ivy. I don't have to train her. She's chiseled. She's in unbelievable shape. She is a specimen. Maxine, you wish you could be her. You dragged her down when you were tagging together. And the Creed brothers, all they needed was a little direction. All they needed was a little guidance. You can even reference the fact that they used to have guidance and they lost their way. But now they're under Master Gable, and they'll never lose their way again. And they wouldn't dare do what Otis did. And you stretch that out. You want to give Otis that first moment of having enough and snapping on Chad. But you can get way more out of this by stretching it out even further. So you don't have Otis beat Chad right away for the IC title. You can get there, and then you get a second moment, but you don't have to go back-to-back with those. And you can get a lot more out of this story. But Chad should walk out of Clash of the Castle as the Intercontinental Champion. Everything he's done should pay off for him and only for him. It's to me, it's Drew and Priest and Sammy and Chad. Drew and Priest, Sammy and Chad. Those are the two matches that I think mean the most at Clash of the Castle. So we'll break all that down coming up on Monday. I know we have the Father's Day celebration with Christian. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. I'll be celebrating with my family over the weekend and my daughter. hopefully you get to spend some time with your family on Father's Day as well. We'll be back Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. A reminder, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because I'll be on vacation. Different time slots, 10 a.m. Eastern, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. And then stay tuned for what we have for you on Friday. Make sure you subscribe at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. More of that bonus content coming your way. The Nitro episode, number 1, reacted to by myself and Chef Reactions, will drop at some point next week. So make sure you put those notifications on so you don't miss a thing. Keep commenting. I'll be responding to you. Check out our shorts. Check out anything you missed. If you're brand new, welcome. We have a lot out there. Interviews with Matt Cardona, the former Zack Ryder, Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb in WWE. We talked to Chef Reactions, who will be a regular contributor on this very channel starting next week. Also talked to Joey Janela. We're working on some more interviews from some of the major companies, and I will leave it at that. And you don't want to miss those, so make sure you subscribe at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Do that right now. Turn the notifications on. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you comment, do all that stuff. And follow us on social media, WrestlingMatt23 on Twitter and Instagram. A lot more going up on there. And follow me at the Matt Camp. Leave me your questions. Leave me your thoughts for a very busy weekend of professional wrestling. And that's how we like it, because as AJ Styles said, what a great time to be a wrestling fan. We will be back on Monday to talk about wrestling even more right here on the Wrestling Mat.